Zion Williamson is going to be an all-star. The Warriors will make the Western Conference Finals, and the Raptors will be a top 3 seed in the East. I'm Chris Hassel, and those are just a few bold NBA predictions we have in store for you, including Joel Embiid's MVP season. If you were to bet $100 on Embiid to win MVP, that would pay out a cool grand. The man with the plan and the bold predictions is our NBA writer, Colin Ward-Henniger, who's going to join us to explain these predictions right now. Let's start with Joel Embiid. Why do you think he's going to win his first MVP award at 10-1?
I think the time is just right for Embiid. I mean, last year he put up ridiculous numbers like 27 points per game, 13 rebounds, nearly 2 blocks. The last player to do that was Shaquille O'Neal, and he won the MVP. I think with Embiid, there's a little bit of him playing against himself. I think everyone knows how talented he is, and they see that he still has even farther to go. So I think this is the year that he hits that. I'm really high on Philadelphia this year. I think they could get the #1 seed in the East, possibly have the best record in the entire NBA. So with that narrative, with him getting more opportunity to close with Jimmy Butler gone, I think that he's going to have some big moments this year, and this really could be the year of Embiid. The only knock on him for MVP is that he won't play enough games. I think that's been the issue. But I think in this modern day of, load management and players missing games, I think voters are going to have to get used to that. The fact that the MVP isn't going to be playing 75, 80 games, more in the 62 to 65 range, which I think Embiid can fall into, and I think that'll help him win the MVP this year.
We're taking a look at his numbers from last season, just under 28 points and 14 rebounds a game to go along with about 2 blocks a game. Where do you see his numbers this season?
Yeah, I think it'll probably be around that same area. They could go up a little bit, but I think the way that Philadelphia uses him will change a little bit because of Al Horford. I think having him there will give the 76ers a true backup center, something that they didn't have last season. No offense to Boban, everybody loves him, but he wasn't exactly getting the job done on a regular basis. So I think having Horford there to spell him will allow Embiid to concentrate more on the offensive end when they're alongside each other, and also be more rested when he comes back into the game and takes Horford out. So I think his numbers will fall right around where they were, if not just a little teeny bit better.
Okay, so there's the bold prediction, the first one anyway from Colin Ward-Henniger. Joel Embiid winning MVP. Only 3 centers have done it since 1993. That was a generation ago. Let's move on to Andre Iguodala, because many people believe that he's going to end up in Los Angeles, or if not in LA, maybe with some contender. But you don't think he's going to end up with the Lakers or the Clippers. Why?
I'm just looking at that Western Conference, and I'm seeing how difficult it is. I mean, it makes sense that Iguodala would want to attach himself to one of these teams that's going to have a chance to win a title. But why would you go out west where it's going to be such a difficult gauntlet in the playoffs when there's a team in the East in Philadelphia, which obviously I just said I'm really high on, and I think their one main weakness is their depth. And adding a guy like Iguodala, who's obviously a playoff savvy veteran, knows how to play in the postseason, has been a finals MVP. He goes back to Philadelphia. It's a great story where he started his career and finishes things out there. It's a much easier road to the finals in the East. So I think that those LA teams will be all over him and want him, whether it's a trade or a buyout situation. But I think ultimately he'll make the smart decision, to me, which is to go to Philadelphia and give yourself the best shot at a title and help a young team.
If he goes to Philadelphia, and you've already said that you see them winning the East and potentially having home court advantage throughout the playoffs with the best record in the NBA, would that make them your title favorites?
I think they might still be one piece away. I think at this point, I'm still going to stick with the Clippers as my title favorites, just because I believe they have the best team overall. But as we've seen so many times, particularly last postseason, one injury hits, 2 injuries hit, and then suddenly everything changes. So I think that with Iguodala, the Sixers would definitely be the favorite in the East. I wouldn't call them the title favorites just yet, but if any sort of injury situation or a player goes down, somebody gets traded, that would leave that door wide open for Philadelphia to come in and win the title.
Okay, so Andre Iguodala, we were used to seeing him go head-to-head with teams that Kevin Love was on for the NBA championship so many years in a row. Now, neither one of those guys is on a contender right now. One of your bold predictions is that Kevin Love is going to go out west. You have him ending up in Portland. How do you see that happening?
Yeah, I mean, Love is the next big piece to be traded. I thought it was going to be Bradley Beal, but he surprisingly signed that extension with the Wizards, which I was a little skeptical about, but not my decision. But I think Kevin Love is the next domino to go. The problem is, you look around the landscape of the league, there's not a lot of teams that actually need a power forward at Love's price. You look at a team like Portland, they obviously have the tremendous backcourt with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, but they need that third piece. They need somebody else who can put the ball in the basket, and I think Love really fits in there. He's from the Pacific Northwest. There's long been rumors about him going back. The rumors used to be about him being traded for CJ McCollum. I don't think that works anymore. I think he needs to be the third guy there. And I think Hassan Whiteside's expiring contract is going to be really attractive because the money matches almost exactly with Love. So the only thing that Portland has to worry about in a deal is that their assets aren't the best. Their draft picks aren't going to be very high. Their young players are interesting, but not anything that's really going to get teams excited. So there might be a third team that has to get pulled in there somewhere or something like that. But I think eventually Portland figures out that they need that extra piece to go to that next level. They're sick of just being a really good team, getting maybe to the second round of the playoffs and then leaving. I think Love could push them over the top if he ends up in Portland.
Okay, so you don't see that contract causing much of a roadblock for the Blazers to try to get that thing done. How about Chris Paul? He is now with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I think many people believe that he doesn't want to be there and eventually wants to be elsewhere with a contender, because we don't really see the Thunder being much of a contender anymore. But you think he plays out the season in Oklahoma City. Why?
I just think, one, they won't be able to trade him. I think they've been trying. I think when they traded for him over the summer, the intent was to flip him somewhere else and continue this rebuild. But at that price, he's going to be making $44 million in the last year of his contract, which is just way too high for a player of Paul's caliber at this point in his career. So I also think that the Thunder are actually going to be a little bit better than a lot of people think. They have a pretty solid starting lineup with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Steven Adams in there, and Danilo Gallinari, who had an excellent year last year. So I think Paul probably doesn't want to be in OKC, but he's going to realize that he doesn't have many other options. So he's gonna come out and try to play well, and I think that's going to lead to a lot of wins, early wins for the Oklahoma City Thunder that people probably weren't expecting. And we've also seen with the Thunder's tremendous amount of draft picks that they have from all these trades, they don't need to have a full rebuild. They don't need to blow it up. We've seen teams like the Celtics, the Nets, the Clippers rebuild on the fly, stay competitive while you're developing younger players and using your draft picks. And then, of course, they can always strike when the iron is hot, when they see that right asset, throw some of those picks into a deal and perhaps get a piece that will help them go to the next level.
So the Thunder are expected to take a pretty significant step back, but they do have an ability to work their way back over the next few years with all that draft capital. Another team that we expect to take a step back, the Golden State Warriors. The question is, how big of a step is that going to be, and will it actually matter that much? You have them still making the Western Conference Finals. That would be a 6th straight time. Why do you think they have enough to get back there?
Well, call me crazy. I've been watching this team during the preseason, and they do not look like a Western Conference Finals team right now. But we're not talking about right now. We're talking about playoff time. So I think during the season, during the regular season, Steph Curry and Draymond Green and D'Angelo Russell will be enough to keep them in that playoff mix, maybe a 5 seed, maybe a 6 seed. The defense has looked atrocious so far, but Steve Kerr, he's talked about how excited he is for this team, this opportunity. They're used to having so many known commodities, and now they have a whole new group of young players to mold. So I think they continually get better and better as the year goes on. And then, of course, you get Klay Thompson hopefully returning sometime after the All-Star break to just inject life and star power into that team. And suddenly you've got a Western Conference team that does have 4 All-Stars, and they'll enter the playoffs as, like I said, maybe that 5 or 6 seed, and that will almost make them a favorite over whoever ends up getting the 3 seed in my mind if they have Klay Thompson. So I think that the injection of life that Thompson will provide will be enough to get this team excited, and they have that championship pedigree and that championship culture that I've been able to witness over the last few seasons. So I think that they can get back to the Western Conference Finals.
With Kevin Durant no longer there and Klay Thompson not expected back until after the All-Star break, what kind of numbers do you see Steph Curry putting up, and will that be able to put him into the MVP conversation once again?
I think Curry will absolutely be in the MVP conversation, if not, win it. I do think Embiid will win, but Curry will definitely be right there. his numbers are going to be much higher, obviously. They have 26 points per game to make up with Durant's departure. If you think that Russell will approximate what Klay produced, you're still missing all of Durant's production. So Curry's going to have to pick that up. Steve Kerr has said during the preseason that he's not going to go crazy with Curry's minutes. So we'll see how that goes. There's going to be certain times when the Warriors are just going to be completely dry offensively. They're going to need Curry to do what he did in the finals when Thompson and Durant were out and just go out there and be a one-man show. He's going to see double teams. He's going to see box and ones like he saw in the playoffs. But this guy is so good. He's so incredible. Steve Kerr recently said that Curry is peaking right now, that he's the best player that he's been. And I think he's ready to show everybody why he is a two-time MVP.
Saw all those highlights against the Toronto Raptors in the NBA Finals. The Raptors lost a huge piece as well, probably the biggest piece of all. Kawhi Leonard was the heart and soul of that team. He led them to the championship, so they're kind of being written off in the Eastern Conference, despite being the defending champs. One of your bold predictions is that they will be a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. How do you see that coming about?
Well, I do think Philadelphia and Milwaukee will be the 1 and 2, but then below that, you've got kind of this mix of teams with Boston, Indiana, Miami, Brooklyn that all have these new pieces that they're going to need to get used to each other and acclimate. And Toronto did lose Kawhi, but other than that, they have a real core coming back. And they have that championship culture. It's kind of the same logic I use with the Warriors. I think when you have something in place like that it really helps, especially during the regular season, because you can beat those teams that you're supposed to beat. And I think that's going to go a long way for them. Kyle Lowry looks like he's healthy-ish coming out of the summer. And, of course, they just signed Pascal Siakam to that extension. So he's really going to elevate, going to take his game up. He's probably going to become that #1 scorer that Kawhi was. The Raptors have been playing much faster in the preseason. I know it's just the preseason, but that's exciting for them. They're going to play a different style of basketball without all the Kawhi Leonard isolations that we're used to seeing. So with guys like Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, I mean, they're on expiring contracts and they could be trade assets, but I think the Raptors will realize that they're going to be a really good team and they're going to be in contention in the East. And at the time of the trade deadline, they're going to look around and say, we don't need to trade these guys. We have a pretty good shot.
Well, they were still a really good team in the regular season without Kawhi Leonard, 17-5 in the 22 games without him. What did they show you with Kawhi Leonard off the floor in those games that leads you to believe they'll be able to do it again this year?
Well, it's that next man up mentality. When they were out here in the Bay Area for the finals last year, everybody talked about it. They don't look at individual accolades. Even though Kawhi was the unquestioned best player on that team, they didn't look at it that way. When Fred VanVleet comes in, he doesn't shy away. We've seen it. When Pascal Siakam's on the court, he gets isolations at the end of games to take over games. Even when Kawhi Leonard was on the court, they were doing that. So I think that Nick Nurse has really just empowered his team to have that next man up mentality. And the return of OG Anunoby, who kind of had a down year last year, he's going to have more opportunity. Guys like Norman Powell. And I just think the way that they play, the system that they have, really lends itself to winning during the regular season.
All right, we've been talking about veterans and superstars. Let's talk about some rookies, including Zion Williamson, the rookie. And he's not going to be able to start the season because of that injury. But your bold prediction is that not only will he be Rookie of the Year, that he's going to be the first rookie to make the All-Star team since Blake Griffin back in 2011.
Yeah, I mean, we all got to see what Zion can bring to the table during the preseason, and it's so frustrating. I mean, for him, obviously most, but for the fans to not be able to see him to start the year. But I'm going to take the Pelicans at their word, and I'm going to think that this isn't a serious injury, that he is going to be back in a few weeks, and I think that will still give him enough production to make the All-Star team. I mean, you look at the guys who have made it, right? Blake Griffin made it as a rookie, and he's a guy that was very similar to Zion coming out of college, right? He's just dunks. It's not going to work in the NBA, and obviously it did for him, and I think it's going to work for Zion as well. I think Rookie of the Year is pretty much a slam dunk, Zion slam dunk. But I think that it's not only going to be a Rookie of the Year, that it's also going to be an all-star selection for him because of the production he has and because of the success that I think the Pelicans will have once he's in the lineup.
You look at the Western Conference All-Stars from last season. Who does he replace on that list?
Well, obviously Kevin Durant is gone, but you think that, Kawhi Leonard might slide into that position. But we see it every single year. There's always going to be an injury. There's going to be someone that backslides. There's new All-Stars every year. And I think that Zion will just have so much momentum because of the way that he changes the game, because how different he is. coaches are already marveling at what he does on the court. So if it's a coach's selection, a player's selection, they're going to vote for a guy like Zion who goes out there and just does something that we've really never seen before in the NBA level.
You see him playing against the Bulls here, and Chicago has a rookie that you're high on as well. Coby White had 29 points in a game this preseason, the most by a Bulls rookie in a preseason game since Derrick Rose, who was incredible his first few years in the league. Why do you think that White is going to be a big offensive force for Chicago?
I got to watch this guy play quite a bit. I know probably a lot of people weren't watching Bulls preseason games, understandably, but Coby White comes off the bench, and that's probably how they're going to use him, and he is not afraid. He doesn't shy away from anything. This guy has a wide arsenal of offensive moves. He can shoot it. He can shoot off the dribble. He can get to the basket, as you see there. He's just a tremendous offensive player, and frankly, I didn't really know how good he was offensively until I saw him this preseason. And Jim Boylan, their coach, has already said he's going to have a prominent role. The Bulls have kind of a crowded backcourt there with Zach LaVine and Satoransky and Chris Dunn, but maybe they look to move Chris Dunn if Coby White comes out, gives him a little more playing time. He's also about 6'5" and maybe like 6'7" with the hair, but he can play multiple positions, so he can play with those other guards, and I think that's going to allow him to thrive in the Bulls offense, particularly when they go small. So I'm really high on Coby White. I think he'll have the scoring numbers that will get him in the mix for that Rookie of the Year conversation. I don't know if defensively he's going to be able to stay on the court that much, but I think the numbers will be there, and he's going to open some eyes as a rookie this year.
Is that a value play then for you at 30-1? If you think he could be in the mix, and you never know what happens with Zion Williamson, especially with the injury concerns.
For me, absolutely. I think that if Zion is out for any extended period of time, RJ Barrett is in New York, so you never know how that situation is going to play out. And I think, like I said, Coby White is going to put up the numbers, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing. He might not be the best rookie out there, but those numbers are going to pop off the page if he can do what he's done in the preseason. So I think absolutely a value play for Coby White for Rookie of the Year. All
right, your last bold prediction is for an NBA record. That seems bold, but three-pointers. We know that this is the direction the NBA is going. You see another three-point record for most threes made in the regular season by the NBA as a whole. Is this something that we're just going to be rewriting every single year from now on?
For the foreseeable future, I mean, the math is the math. The players are coming up, shooting threes now. That's what they do. I was talking to Matt Barnes the other day, former NBA player, and he was telling me how his kids, he coaches 10-year-olds, and all they do is shoot three-pointers all the time. So he said he doesn't think that this trend is going away anytime soon. So the NBA continually sets three-point records for makes and attempts every year. And guys like James Harden shooting upwards of 10, 12, 15 in a game, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So I think that those records will just continue to fall until there's some sort of dramatic shift in either analytics or in the style of play or in the rules.
And he's got that one-legged sidestep as well. You got the past 7 seasons here on the screen. Almost 28,000 three-pointers made. You go back 5-6 years and it was 10,000 fewer. Just incredible, the explosion of three-point shots. Colin Ward-Henniger, thank you so much. Bold predictions. You can see all of them on CBSSports.com, but thank you for joining us here on the CBS Sports YouTube page. Let's recap some of his bold predictions. He's got Joel Embiid winning the MVP at 10-1. Andre Iguodala joining the Sixers and then becoming the best team in the Eastern Conference, according to Colin Ward-Henniger. Kevin Love ending up in Portland. Chris Paul staying put in Oklahoma City. The Warriors making another Western Conference final. The Raptors getting a top 3 seed. Zion Rookie of the Year and All-Star. Coby White, though, is a value play at 30-1 to win Rookie of the Year. And, of course, that three-point record set. You can get all this and much, much more on the CBS Sports YouTube page. Click subscribe right now.